Hello everybody. Today we'll be looking at some of the ninja based mods for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. The first mod we'll be looking at is Autobuild Ninjutsu by Miztr-Sage. Now what this mod does is add a bunch of ninjutsu to the Autobuild section. And for those of you who don't know what ninjutsu is, it's basically like magic sign language. But for now, I'll go through each one and show you what they do, as well as some practical uses. As always, links to the mods and their creators can be found in the description below. The first jutsu we'll look at is the Ice Jutsu. I'm not going to try with the Japanese names as I struggle with pronouncing things that are in English, so Japanese is a little bit of a no-go. Now unsurprisingly, this freezes most of the enemies in the area, and is an ongoing effect, meaning you can drag it around and keep freezing various enemies. This is an important distinction to make, as some of the moves are a one-time use only. You can also use a jutsu to create ice from water, and maybe even try and make yourself a bridge, although it is harder than it looks. The next jutsu we'll be looking at is the Fire Jutsu, which, similar to the ice, sets enemies on fire within an area, and can be dragged around. I did not realise it was raining. Okay, instead we're going to be looking at the Lightning Jutsu then. Now this jutsu is different from the other two, and you can't just drag it around to keep zapping the enemies. It's also important to take into account that it will zap anything near you, including items. The jutsu doesn't have many uses outside of combat, but you could use it to activate Zonai devices if you really wanted. As I was saying earlier, the Fire Jutsu works very similar to the Ice Jutsu, and sets all the enemies on fire within a certain range. You should always be careful though, as grass will also set on fire, which can in turn set you on fire. The flames can also be used to defrost the pebblets and taluses that you can find in the frozen regions, allowing Link to get more hands-on.
Woo-wee! Finally! Kinda colder than I expected.
Now our next jutsu, the Water Jutsu, sadly isn't quite as powerful as the others, as it basically just splashes them with some water. This can be however useful for fire-based enemies, and you can even put out the giant rock taluses that are on fire. And you can put out the lava, creating these rocky platforms. But apart from that, it offers little use. The next jutsu is basically a flashbang. So if any of you have a sensitivity to flashing lights, I'd recommend you skip the video to the time on the screen now. Now this jutsu basically works the same as the Dazzle Fruit, which causes enemies to drop their weapons and be blinded temporarily. It also kills most of the skeleton enemies outright. Our next jutsu creates a giant updraft, rather like Revali's Gale from Breath of the Wild, although it's much bigger and extends much higher, allowing Link to gain some very serious height. The only problem is when I say it's much bigger, I mean much bigger, and affects all of Hyrule at once, which can lead to some strange visuals. Stepping away from the more elemental type of jutsus, we now have basically a giant explosion jutsu. What it does is create a giant explosive barrel, which creates a giant explosion. Although you have to be careful, as a barrel actually takes a little time to build, meaning you're going to have to predict where the enemies are going to be when it lands. On the other hand, what you can do is build the barrel, place it gently on the floor, and then pick it up later on to drop on the enemies. Our next two jutsus are fairly similar. The first one creates a Lyshalfos which isn't quite an enemy and isn't quite a friend, and will go on to basically attack anyone, in the same way an enemy who'd been hit by a Muddlebud may have. Speaking of which, the next ninjutsu does exactly what a Muddlebud does, but in a larger area, which is useful if you want to create your own civil war. Now the next jutsu is easily my favourite one, and probably one of the coolest things I've seen in a Tears of the Kingdom mod, that being the Clone Jutsu. It also happens to be one of the hardest to do correctly, and I'll link a video in the description that the creator made to show you how to do it correctly.
5 minutes later.
When done correctly, Link can make a perfect clone of himself, which copies whatever he was wearing or had equipped at the time of using the jutsu. This clone will also follow Link's exact movements. If I go left, the clone goes left. If I go right, the clone goes right. And if I hold right while I'm on the floor or I'm climbing a wall, the clone can still move right, meaning the clone is more like a second player, or a third, fourth, fifth, depending on how many clones you make. Another interesting element of the clone is that if you equip a weapon after making the clone themselves will not equip the weapon, meaning that you can make one clone while you're holding the Master Sword and wearing the Hylian set, and another where you had a stick with a rock on it completely naked, which would allow you to have a clone army wearing all different types of things and having all different types of weapons. The clones are quite hard to keep track of, and will be attacked by enemies. Luckily they're invincible, so this isn't really a problem. The mod also leaves on occasion a slight audio glitch, which sounds like you're trying to build something with Autobuild even when you're no longer in Autobuild. But apart from that, it's definitely one of the most interesting Breath of the Wild mods I've seen. Now for those of you who had Nintendogs on their DS when you were younger, your dreams can now be realised in Tears of the Kingdom, with the dog summoning jutsu, which allows you to summon the 3 types of dogs within the game. Now I don't think the dogs really have any practical use, but you can spawn as many as you like, and potentially create your own puppy paradise. Now our final jutsu creates a zero gravity zone, very similar to the ones you'll see in the water temple, as well as those labyrinth things. The gravity zone will obviously have an effect on Link's movement, but most importantly has an effect on the Zonai equipment, allowing for easier flight, which will also allow you to roleplay pretending you're on the moon, or playing Starfield. Now our next mod is Sheikah Techniques by Katzy123. Now this mod is a combination of animation changes as well as actual gameplay changes, with most of the animation changes being from Sheik, or I should say Sheik's moveset in the Super Smash Bros. Series. Most of these changes come in the form of a different walking and running animation for Link, both of which now have increased speed. He also performs a backflip when jumping and running. Thanks to this backflip, Link can enter the bullet time bow mode without needing to jump off anything. Changes were also made to the sneak strike animation, which now has much more of a ninja feel. Another big change to the combat is that Link can now move around while charging up an attack, along with different charging animations depending on the type of weapon. Link's existing animations now have reduced lag, as the mod creator put it, leading to a more fluid and smoother type of combat. A good example is parrying with a shield, as now you can basically spam the parry button and it will most likely work. One of the smaller changes is the change to the katana, which now has a different power/charged attack and does the cool little anime slice thing. The animation changes don't stop with the combat, and Link will now perform hand signs when using any of his Zonai abilities, which works incredibly well with the Autobuild Ninjutsu mod. Now that we have all the abilities and animations, we just need to look the part, which is where the Uchiha set and Madara armor come into play, by Potato Fried 17. Both outfits are taken from the Naruto franchise, and I've actually been wearing the Uchiha set for most of this video. Both of the sets replace existing armors within the game, and more details on that can be found in the mod page, which can be found in the description below. They also happen to come with additional variants which include different types of eyes from the Naruto series. The last mod we'll be looking at is Standalone Recollection, which once again is by Potato Fried 17. What this mod does is include a large range of weapons and armors from different games and allows you to buy them from the bargainer statue. Although today we'll just be looking at the Naruto weapons. The first weapon we'll be looking at is a kunai, which is very similar to a sharp boomerang. Sadly it doesn't stab into objects like it normally would, but the returning aspect is still welcome. The next weapon is Hidan's Scythe, which, like a scythe in real life, is very effective at cutting grass, and will do a lot more damage than the regular garden equipment we can find in Tears of the Kingdom. It can also be thrown incredibly far. Our next two weapons, Samehada Sealed and Samehada Lunacy, both have the ability Water Warrior, which means they'll do more damage when wet. The sealed version works very similar to a normal two-handed sword. The Lunacy version, however, does much more damage, but also comes with the added gloom effect, meaning it will slowly drain your hearts. And this is the end of the video. What I'd like to know is which one of the ninjutsus was your favourite? And if you could add any ninjutsu from Naruto into Tears of the Kingdom, which one would it be? Please let me know in the comments below, and thank you for watching.